Sarabea. Au kunara, au easy, yeda kunam.
Hello my gaming pals and gals, my name is Gamessnia and welcome to the show that dissects games in the past, the present or sometimes even the future and decides what their judgment is going to be. I am your host today and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gamessnia show. And hey, let me ask you, do you have a pet? Just asking, it's a bit of a random question but I still want to know the answer, and if so, do you share a really strong bond with them, like to the point of it being a full-on loving relationship? I mean, I know to everyone that's got a pet, and I know there are some people that don't in this world, I know to every single one of those people that it is a strong, loving relationship. Hell, I have really strong relationships with my pets, and honestly, it's one of the most wholesome things an owner can have. It could be a cat, it could be a rabbit, a guinea pig, a gerbil, a chinchilla, anything. Hell, it could be even the lying out in your front yard that won't let you leave the house when you actually want to not social distance. But me personally, I've always been a fan of dogs. But why even go to the topic of dogs all of a sudden just to start off this video? Why even bother going there? Well, The Last Guardian is where I'm going with that. Now, The Last Guardian to me is something interesting. I've always laid my eyes upon it, but I've never even bothered to go near it because, quite frankly, the company that make it, Team Ico, made this game, but I've always been turned off by their games. Not because I don't like them or because I'm judgmental, just because I've never went near one.
Yes, I get it. Team Ico Games are responsible for being one of the most passionate developers out there and having their games being highly praised by the majority of people across the internet, one of which includes the supposed one of the greatest games of all time, Shadow of the Colossus. But me personally, I've never touched any of their vast treasure trove of positively received collection of games. The looking at it is, oh shit, they've only made 3 games.
But alas, now we can rejoice because today will mark the day in my calendar where I will be starting my very first Team Ico game, and it's been a long time and it's looking a bit mixed in here because I looked online beforehand in this game and I looked at all the mixed reviews and it kind of ranges between good and bad, and myself, I don't really take that in consideration. I just play the game for what I do and make my own opinion on it and don't base it like all the other people on the internet can do it sometimes. So with that in mind, I don't really care about those mixed reviews. The only thing I care about is one thing. Does the dog live?
I'm being serious. If this is a repeat case of the ending of Marley and Me with Wow and his wife of the same acting role for nearly 20 years, where she dates guys who both always resist liking each other, and I truly do mean always, I am personally sending a tweet of displeasure to their main contact line so my tears can be heard this time round, and not be sat in my corner crying like I always am when this shit hits hard like it always does. God, why am I so alone? But this is Japan, where the dog looks like that in a Japanese game, with an art style made famously by Japan, where landscapes capture your eyes in a Japan game, in a Japan woodland area, that's in Japan. And oh yeah, did I mention, it's made by Japan!
And yeah, I get it, it's not a dog, it's more like a winged beast, majestic, mythical creature sort of thing, and even though that is the case, it jumps like a dog, rolls around the water like a dog, barks like a dog, jumps like a dog too, and it pretty much is a fucking dog. So if anybody's got a problem with that, tough shit, it's my show.
But his name is Trico, and he's
so fucking cute.
And you know, I'm not even going to beat around the bush to get to this point, so I'm just going to jump straight into it. A major focus is on Trico and your bond with him as the kid, and the wonderful thing to me is that it's just like a bond between a real life human and a dog, but you know, without the smelly part. And granted, yes, it starts off very dodgy with Trico being super wary of you, but once you remove the spears from him, because why the fuck would you put a spear in a dog anyway, and start feeding him a bit, his trust in you will start to build, and the more you spend time with him, the more you develop your bond with this furry big ball of cuteness, which will make you trust him even more, and the more he trusts you, the more you gain control over him with commands. And that's kind of where most of your time leans towards. He acts more like your buddy slash companion to help you advance past areas that require assistance from him, such as trying to open doors or clearing away blockades that you yourself couldn't get past because, well, like I said earlier, you're just a kid. You have zero ways of fighting back because, you know, you're a kid. Having such a very limited moveset of jumping, moving and climbing around, and there are possessed soldiers who look to abduct you, and all you can do is just run. And if you do unluckily get abducted by your average Timmy Stark Savills over here, well, may I ask you, how's your button mashing skills?
Pretty good.
Good. Because you'll need to bombard them like never before. It truly does give you the feeling of how weak you can be in all these scenarios, and the only saving grace you can really rely on is Trico. So when you are on your own separated from Trico, you practically feel useless and utterly defenseless, kind of like how you would feel as a child if you weren't by a guardian's side. And those times you reunite with Trico, it creates a feeling of relief and happiness as you start to feel safe once again and extremely protected. And from my perspective, it was one of the best feelings I could have, to be relieved of reuniting with my own pet guardian once again. And to all the people who don't have pets that don't understand this feeling, well, I don't know what to tell you except get a pet. It's truly how much I came to bond with the guy. I just felt upset he wasn't next to me for a few minutes. That's all it took. And it all just felt like he was my best friend that cared for me. And I truly think the game does an amazing job at building that relationship. And I truly cared for an animal in the game for once, which is not actually something a lot of games manage to do as beautifully as Team Ico does here. And me, I never personally have experienced the beauty of a Team Ico game because of, well, what I told about their games from my end earlier. But oh my god, I've missed out with their stuff. I definitely have. I'm going to admit it right here. These guys, with a shadow of a doubt, know how to make beautiful sights on a video game. It was just, wow. Like the textures and the minuscule details. Fuck! Even those camera angles. Those fucking camera angles. My god, they work. Especially the camera pan shots where you are really high up in the air. Little things like that, for some reason, make these bright and beautiful detailed landscapes pop out more than anything in this game. I mean, when you get someone who has a fear of arachnophobia get anxious over heights in a game such as the likes of this, you know they did an utterly marvelous job of the presentation. And I shouldn't even be the one terrified here. Look at this little shit! Climbing ruins that could fall off at any given time or any given point, or balancing himself on a rope that is directly under a bottomless pit, and yet he brushes it off like a simple trip of the foot. I mean, who the fuck does this kid think he is? Tom Cruise?
Look down. Look down. Keep on moving. Don't look down. Don't look down. Keep on moving and don't look down. I'm looking down! Ah!
So yeah, this game is easily a visual beautiful game to look at, but the next big thing for me was how cinematically beautiful it was. It felt like a movie. And I know we play games for the sake of playing games and to see how well they look presentation wise and how well they can be to play them. Oh boy. But I want to marry games that blend gameplay into cutscenes so perfectly, to the point that the loading aspect of a game is so smooth, it's like it doesn't even exist. I loved it in Metal Gear Solid 5, both of them, and I loved it here. Especially stuff like the bridge cinematics or the big flight scenes are blended in so beautifully with the gameplay and also look absolutely astounding when it comes to the actual cutscene itself. It was just amazing to see these gorgeous cinematics blend from the gameplay so seamlessly to then having the cutscene that look this damn good. But I maybe think action ain't exactly the right word for this type of game now that I think about it.
And what do I mean by this? Like, it is an action-adventure game. I mean, I even checked on Wikipedia, so it is technically defined as an action-adventure game, and there is a lot of adventure bits in there, and action pieces are definitely there as well, but action is the furthest thing away I could call The Last Guardian.
It's not even close. Yes, it has a few instances of action set pieces, and there is times where you are just watching Trico trashing the everlasting shit out of these soldiers, which, mind you, is one of the most satisfying things to just see these annoying tin cans get absolutely wrecked. God, yes, that felt satisfying. One more time. Although there is action portions, it's mostly a slow, dragged out adventure with a pure emphasis on adventure. It's mostly just a case of taking your time through this whole mythical island, and is a giant, no pun intended, guiding path with Trico as he needs you and you need him. And while this can be a strange case of genre that understandably can turn a lot of people away in the other direction of disliking the style of game, which people have done, there can be a few people such as myself who enjoyed on what this game wants to initially accomplish. Just taking that slow time to guide Trico through everything and traversing big ruins, whilst taking the extra dosage of time to look out for him to make sure he's okay, was all things that just felt so touching. And while it all looks boring, and ultimately yes, it can be like that sometimes, it's just something you can't understand until you play through the game yourself. Every moment of pulling out spears and petting the living hell out of Trico's fur was things that really didn't need to be done in the game, but was something I did anyway out of the goodness of my own heart. And not because I felt bad or because it helped me advance quicker, but because of how much I cared and worried about Trico. Even something like feeding barrels to Trico was something that never at any point in the game, minus a few instances where it was kinda mandatory. And yes, while there is the nice achievement of feeding all the barrels to him, that's kinda all you get from it really. There's no point or award to getting even close to finding all the barrels and giving them to Trico, but you know what? I still did it, and I still went out of my way to feed him as much as possible, and that's how much I came to grew to love him. And for the 20 hours that I spent doing this, in that time, I made a new best friend who I genuinely cared for and worried about.
And that's what it's all about. Caring for Trico, putting love into all the actions that you do for him, and bonding with him more and more the more time you spend with him. And it really does feel like a family adventure. And even though it does feel like a slow, dragged out family adventure, because let's face it, kinda is, it still is a really heartwarming family adventure to boot off. And even though it can be in the slow side, I bloody love that.
And by lord, it felt like the best one imaginable. Controls though. Fuck off! It's just a case of taking on this long adventure and finding out what it has at the end of the road, even if sometimes it's not something you want to come across. And trust me, it has its fair share of intense moments to throw you off, which in my opinion only just connect a nice little cherry on top, as they were some of the biggest close call moments I've ever had in a game, where you would have moments of falling off a cliff in slow motion, thinking you failed until you were rescued at the last minute out of nowhere, or jumping off of something to then grab Trico, or could be a double bluff sometimes just to throw you off even further. But they seriously were some of the best moments in the game for me, and my heart was racing. And the best thing about all of that is how out of nowhere they can come. You can just be casually using Trico to climb buildings, and buildings crumbling, walls crackling on all angles,
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
oh yeah, and Trico just being the absolute badass that he is, who views death as an optional choice. Yeah, not really that important.
You can't defeat me.
No, I know. But he can.
So yeah, it's got this mix of taking your time, including deciphering certain puzzles by your own observation skills, or using a shield to get Trico to blow up certain obstacles in your path to find your right way forward, and throwing roller coaster sections in here and there to make the intensity grow up. And yeah, it just makes for a much more special and unpredictable adventure, and it just feels all the better when it is done in this way. And the fact it succeeds every single time and doesn't feel ever like it's predictable or repetitious just makes it feel like something else.
I've just loved it. I thought it was like no other game I've ever played before, and I can safely say that the controls and camera are absolutely perfect, and there is nothing wrong with them whatsoever, and there should be nothing to say about them in this video negatively, because there is nothing bad about them whatsoever. Which is what you want me to say probably, but trust me, that's not the case at all.
What happened here? Look, I'll tell you, I enjoyed the whole journey from start to finish, cherished every moment, loved every ledge, walkway and crevice. But for a game trying to bond with a pet that you need to control, climb, interact with and ultimately love in the end, controlling him was a fucking nightmare. As you know, you can command Trico to follow a certain direction by calling him in that direction, or if you want, do the running man. But the jump commands, oh, the
Jump commands.
Trying to command this little adorable furry cuddly cutie bastard is, believe it or not, as much as that face wishes to tell you, one of the most time consuming and absolute chore filled things I have ever decided to ever bother in a video game made by Sony Entertainment. Everything else is fine in the game, everything else is smooth, but for some reason this jumping just takes forever to register for Trico. I can't even tell you on how this works, because I'll be honest, I just don't know. It's just so random half the time. I never know if it's Trico unable to jump up onto a ledge because it's not grabbable, or if he's just taking his sweet ass time getting ready to jump. Sometimes it works bang on with Trico reacting to your commands instantaneously, and truth be told, I thought it was my controller because, you know, I have luck like that. But no, yeah, that'd be more funnier if that wasn't the case, and guess what? It's an actual hassle. I feel like I'm trying to climb fucking Mount Everest on the coldest winter solstice. Like, come on, just climb. It's just climbing with a companion. How hard could that have been in the development team? Just get under there and, oh my God, please, for the love of God. This is the last place I need to be. And look, the controls are bad enough, but can you just fuck off with this camera? What's going on? Why does it do... well, this! Tight spaces are just the worst. Open spaces are great. They're very spacious. Tons of room to move around, and commands just work better, honestly. But mix the opposite of this in tight spaces with a camera that reminds me too much of Sonic 06, because I don't need that reminder, and it can just suck a lot of life out of possibly everything you're meant to experience.
So yeah, the controls ain't exactly there, and the camera, well, it's shit. And that could dampen a lot of what the game is, and honestly, I don't care.
Yeah, despite my moaning bitchy voice for the last few minutes, I still loved it. I bonded too much with Trico, I felt heavily for the kid, the story was actually very interesting. Obviously won't spoil anything on here because of how beautiful and moving this game can be, but all I can say it was extremely effed up, and I seriously don't know if it's a running factor in this game. At least I know the controls aren't, but that ending, man, that shit got me. Holy shit, that got me. I promised myself I wasn't gonna cry at the end of the game, but I did. I tried to help it, but I couldn't. And if I didn't already enjoy the game because of the adventure, that ending sure as anything made me love The Last Guardian. And if I'm being honest, I'm so happy I did.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was awesome. I thought, even though the controls and the camera were a bit meh, it definitely delivered on the other aspects of the beauty of the story, the twist that you get in the story as well, the bond that you're supposed to share with Trico and the kid and all that. You really get that, and that is kind of what the game focuses on, and Team Ico are known for that. They're known for making games that they're passionate about, and that is just something I respect wholly. Like, they're not the best game developers out there for terms of on how to constructively do levels and do gameplay properly. They're not the best on that. They just want to make games for the people and make games that just they're passionate about. And I love that. I respect that. And honestly, as well as I enjoyed it as well, I'm still going to love this game for what it is as well. Even though it's not the best playing game out there. And I would seriously recommend it to every single one of you. And if you don't like crawled out slow sequence of a game, then obviously don't go for it. But I recommend anyone to try this out because of how amazing it is, and it shows how devoted and how beautifully Team Ico can make their games. But I have been your host, Gamessnia, and thank you for joining me on today's edition of the Gamessnia show on The Last Guardian. That's a lot of ons I said in that sentence, but I don't care. I'm probably going to go ahead after this video and just go ahead and just lie next to my dog, because this video is just putting me more of a dog mood. I'm going to lie next to them for like maybe 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 maybe. But I will all see you in the very next Gamessnia show episode. And until then, guys, I hope you have a really good day. And this is me, Gamessnia, once more, signing off.